What is so bad about dejection? Is not every human being afflicted from time to time by fits of melancholy, discontent, despair, despondency, grief, sadness, or self-pity? Yes, that is so. What alone matters is the right attitude towards this evil. Dejection is a disease of the soul. It is self-destructive. People should remember that their irritability will return to them as a burden. It brings to mind the terrible picture of a man who has put his head in a noose and only realizes it when his own neck is being broken. You weaken yourself, namely your higher self. Your vibration drops, your fiery body decomposes, and your aura turns downright ugly. Self-pity weakens even the strong in spirit. Gloom is an active destroyer of your psychic energy. Do not weaken yourself. Discontent, doubt, self-pity all consume the psychic energy. It is said if a man despairs at his first failure, this merely shows that his own psychic energy is in full dissoluteness. It makes great deeds impossible. Achievement is impossible in a state of depression. Depression is death. It is like a purse full of holes. Through depression, the most precious spills out. It robs you of your best possibilities. Though already on their way, a multitude of possibilities go unrealized because of personal complaints arising out of self-pity. Wonderful possibilities flee from us when we are busy analyzing outrages against us, which in many cases are imaginary and self-suggested. The emanations of dejection attract lower subtle beings which feed on them. Depression is the most gloomy magnet, and irritation also entices ugly guests. In your despair, you downright attract negative energies towards you. People would rather send their complaints out into space, thereby calling down upon themselves a shower of stones. The moment a man exclaims, "Oh, how unhappy I am," he immediately increases his trouble. But he who declares, "I am happy," opens the gates to happiness. As soon as he has expressed a mood, it is already anchored in space. This is how we invoke the highest forces. Despondency is an expression of your lower self. It is unworthy of your eternal nature, of a God-man, a messenger of higher powers. It does not befit a warrior to be overwhelmed by depression. Despair is called darkness. Such a definition is precise. Indeed, it extinguishes the radiation and the fire of the heart. Such a state is not only harmful, it is unworthy of man. He becomes lower than an animal. Your higher self despises this weakness. Faint-heartedness is contempt for the higher ego. Faint-heartedness is slavery of the spirit. How did this faint-heartedness come upon you in this moment of crisis? It is not at all befitting honorable man, and does not lead to the attainment of heavenly spheres, but to infamy. Do not yield to unmanliness. This is not worthy of you. Give up such petty weakness of heart, and rise up. The damage of despair is not confined to you yourself. It is contagious. It paralyzes others around you and pollutes space. The man who feels himself unlucky has been called an obscurer of the heavens. He has collected gloom around himself and has infected the distant space. He has harmed himself, but still more, all that exists. He has become a breeding ground of afflictions. Dejection is basically egotism. There is no evil to equal the offense of faint-heartedness. In it is hidden treachery. In it is concealed a fraudulent magnanimity. In it is secreted a ruinous half-wayness. Its master is Satan. Its motive power is selfhood. I don't understand. I don't want anything for myself when I feel down, do I? Well, instead of caring for other people or making the world a better place, the depressive one prefers to wallow in his imagined grievances. No one has insulted you, but you have offended yourself. Once you have freed yourself from all personal desires, once you no longer aspire to anything for yourself, there is no reason any longer for a depressed mood. See to it that you do not burden your fellow man with your filth. The leader must always be alert in order that no one receive from him emanations of depression. This applies not only to a spiritual or worldly leader in the strict sense, but also, for example, to teachers, doctors, or parents, to whatever position you hold. Your task is not to drag your fellow men down, but to elevate them. How then does a hierarch create on earth? By uplifting all the surroundings. You can accomplish this only if you keep your own vibration high. Schiller was born with this genuine Christ tendency. He touched nothing common without ennobling it. As a new man, you will want to set an example that the other old mortals around you can imitate. That does not mean that there is no reason for depression. On the contrary, the higher a consciousness is, the more it will suffer. From the tension between heaven and earth, from the gulf between material reality and spiritual ideals. The growth of consciousness is accompanied by attacks of anguish, which are truly unavoidable. A growing awareness of the differences between the conditions of infinity and those of earthly reality cannot but provoke the sympathies of a fair consciousness. There is no way to infinity without a sensitivity to one's surroundings. Be assured that the greater the consciousness, the greater the anguish. The terrible situation of the world, barbarism, ignorance, and surrounding imperfection give a lot of pain to a sensitive mind. It is necessary to understand why the presence of evil hearts is so painful to good hearts. It is grievous for us to see how solitary thinkers suffer from savage ignorance. The burden of the world, however, is inevitable. Let us not complain because of the many attacks. It cannot be otherwise. Precisely an yogi senses that the cross of existence stands immutable. Gloom, this scourge of mankind, like the diseases of the body, must be fought against and eradicated in every individual human being. To transform it into confidence, energy, and joy is the inner work a spiritual warrior has to carry out every single day. Thus one must behave in accordance with the higher level, not being disturbed by the imperfection of one's surroundings. Despondency is weakness of the will. Summon all your strength to drive it away. Despair is of course engendered by one's own weak will. This phantom has nothing in it of reality. Can depression really be fought with willpower? My psychiatrist will disagree. Yes, you can and you must. Despair, in the vast majority of cases, is a lack of mental strength, of psychic energy. We repeat, dejection is an illness of the soul. A person strong in spirit does not suffer, just as a healthy, strong body does not hurt. You can and must heal and strengthen your soul in order to overcome suffering. Make a conscious effort to increase your psychic energy. How you can achieve this is explained in our series Psychic Energy. Temptation as such is not the problem. All saints and warriors of faith have suffered from it. What would be bad is not to fight it and to give in to dejection. In doing so, you allow darkness to gain power over you. You succumb to the attacks of chaos without resistance. That must never happen. The defenders of the stronghold, instead of resisting, open the gates to the enemy. There is a still more dangerous case when a man has in himself the germs of a disease, and instead of opposing it, he gives into it and deprives himself of the possibility of recovery. The man himself hastens the process of disease. He becomes the slave of his sickness and tries with all his strength to aggravate the symptoms of the disease. He constantly observes himself, but not in a desire to recover. He falls into the deepest self-pity. The man is even offended and angry when spoken to about the possibility of recovery. Thus he can reach a dangerous degree of depression which cannot be transformed into a rising strength. This acts as a counter-energy, and the man deprives himself of his basic value, striving for self-perfection. Your true nature is revealed when confronted with adversity. Do you take up the fight, or do you surrender? How does man conduct himself in moments of so-called misfortune? A spirit which has undergone preparation says, "We shall conquer," and dons its fiery armor. But the weak and pitiful in spirit is crestfallen, and thus admits a great infection. Whining and complaining do not help. They will only make the situation even worse. You must find the causes of the disease and fight them. Let people not complain, but live more purely. Man prays for forgiveness, yet fails to alter his manner of living. Man bewails his misfortune, but does not abandon a single habit which brought him into his state of sorrow. Just praying for forgiveness has no meaning if it is not accompanied by reformation of life. It is not sorrow, but hypocrisy, when the higher wisdom is burdened by self-pity. Every victory that the individual gains in this struggle is at the same time a triumph for the whole of humanity. When grief or pain seize upon you, try to realize that they are part of the great world's pain and grief, as you are a part of it. And to whatever extent you succeed in rising above, in conquering them, to just that extent have you changed the inharmonious conditions of the world and made it a better dwelling place for the children of God.